Hello, teacher.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon,
teacher.
So I think,
Good afternoon, Venerable.
yeah, I think we can begin our lecture today. So I hope you remember what we have been discussing so far regarding the course. Last week we have been focusing on the essential teaching of the Buddha, right? So we are supposed to focus today on the establishment of Sangha, the Fourfold Buddhist communities. So that would be the topic of our discussion today. The Fourfold Sangha. I think you are all familiar with the Bhikkhu Sangha, Bikuni Sangha, Upasaka Sangha, and Upasika Sangha. So, as we are aware that after the attainment of enlightenment, the Buddha in the beginning, was not ready to teach his Dhamma, but later on, with the request of Brahma Sahampati, he agreed to teach the Dhamma, and then he carried out his Dhamma mission later on for 45 years. But without establishing the Sangha, it was not possible. So you have to keep this in mind. Even though at the beginning he was not really eager to, share his awakening experience for various reasons, but later on, when he taught his first 5 disciples, from that time onwards, he started his Dhamma mission, we can say. And then, of course, if you have gone through this document that I sent to you from the Mahavagga, I hope you have this document where you can find an authentic representation of how the Buddha really started his teaching career as a Buddha after his attainment of awakening. So this document basically provides you this particular discussion until the conversion of Sariputta and Mahamoggallana in Rajagaha. So the place also mattered because the place of his attainment of awakening was, Bodh Gaya. From there he moved to Varanasi, Isipatana, where he, delivered his first few discourses, and after that he moved to Rajagaha. So we have to keep this in mind that Rajagaha is a place where most of these ascetics and philosophers, paribhajakas, samanas, they have been staying in different places in Magadha kingdom. So King Bimbisara was the ruler at that time. And we are also reminded that when Siddhartha left home in search of truth, in search of ultimate truth and ultimate bliss, he was crossing this Magadhan kingdom. And in fact, we find in some of the stories, life stories of Siddhartha and Buddha that are available, we find that before his attainment of awakening, when he was crossing this place, he met King Suddhodana. So, sorry, not King Suddhodana, King Bimbisara. And then there was a kind of an agreement at the beginning when Bimbisara came to know that, Siddhartha is leaving home in search of enlightenment. In the beginning, King Bimbisara was not able to understand that because, it says that both Siddhartha and Bimbisara were about the same age, and Bimbisara was a king at that time already, and Siddhartha was leaving his kingdom. So Bimbisara knew Sakyan kingdom beforehand. So they had a kind of relationship between these two kingdoms. So when Bimbisara met Siddhartha, he was surprised that he was leaving, Siddhartha was leaving kingdom. So in fact, Bimbisara asked him to join his kingdom and rule Magadhan kingdom together. So Bimbisara was, willing to share his kingdom with Siddhartha, but Siddhartha was not ready to accept that. So he said that I left my own kingdom in search of truth, so I'm not willing to rule, any country or any region. So, but then Bimbisara requested him that if you attain enlightenment, if you are successful in your journey, please come back to this kingdom and spread your teaching. So that was a kind of an agreement between the two. But in any case, we find that in the Pali literature and also in other literature, Magadhan kingdom was very supportive to all these different ascetic groups and paribhajakas. So I think that was one of the reason why the Buddha, after his awakening, went back to Rajagaha. But it did not take place immediately after his awakening. So it took few years. Yeah, so let me share my screen and then we'll go through different steps, one after the another, following this exposition in Mahavagga and in some other text. Okay. I think it is clearly visible, right? Display. Why? Okay. So when we talk about Sangha in Buddhist, in the Buddha Sasana, we refer to this fourfold Sangha. And we have to keep this in mind that this Sangha comes after Buddha and Dhamma. So they are considered as one of the three jewels. Okay. Buddha and his teaching, that is his sharing of his enlightenment experience, and the Sangha that really carry out his message in their own practice and transmit or transfer the same experience to the later generation. So that is what is understood from these three jewels. Now, when we are talking about the establishment of Fourfold Sangha, you can find this explanation in the Mahaparinibbana Sutta, where, of course, when you look at the life of the Buddha and his struggle for attaining enlightenment, you would find that he was met with Mara, right? So Mara is normally understood as evil one. Now there are different explanations of the concept of Mara, and there are different types of Mara, that are found in Buddhist text. So this Mara, it could be some negative psychological qualities. It could be some external forces, external bad conditions, and so on. But here it says that when he was trying to attain enlightenment, he met this Mara. Mara was trying to stop him, stop him from progressing in his practice. And even after his attainment of enlightenment, Mara approached the Buddha, saying that you have achieved your goal. Now you can attain Parinibbana. So Parinibbana is a concept associated with Buddhas and Arahants. So normally we say that, when somebody is born, one has to pass away. So jati and marana come together, right? When somebody is born, that is jati, that is considered as dukkha. And after that, marana. Marana is considered as another dukkha, part of dukkha, because you are still in the cycle of samsara. But when we talk about Buddhas and Arahants, we talk about parinibbana, complete cessation. So their passing away is not understood as general marana, as it is applicable for the others, for the common worldlings. So Mara is requesting the Buddha to attain parinibbana, that is to pass away, because his work is done. But then, in the later Pali literature, you can find the description of Fivefold Mara, including this Devaputta Mara, Machu Mara, Kilesa Mara, and so on. So here, when Mara was requesting the Buddha to attain parinibbana, Buddha is saying that yes, I have attained enlightenment. I have realized the truth, but I have to share it with others. So I have to establish this fourfold Sangha and establish them in the truth, and they should be ready to share this message to others. They should be well capable of doing all this. Then only I will enter into parinibbana. So you can read here, parinibba tu idani bhante bhagava, parinibbatu sugato parinibbana kalo idani bhante bhagavato. So Mara is saying that this is now time for the Buddha to attain parinibbana. Bhasita kupanesa bhante bhagavata vacha na tavahang papima parinibbayisami yavame bhikkhu bhikkhuniyu upasaka upasika na savaka bhavisanti vyatta vinita visarada bahussuta dhammadara dhammanudhamma patipanna samichi patipanna anudhammacharino sakhang acharyakang uggahetva achikissanti desessanti panyapessanti pattapessanti vivarissanti vibhajissanti utanikarissanti uppannang parapavadang sahadammena suniggahitam niggahetva sappatiharyang dhammang desessanti. So he was not just saying that until I establish this fourfold Sangha, I would attain, I would not attain parinibbana. He was also saying that they should be well established. They should be well established in the Dhamma, in the Vinaya. They should be expert in the teaching. They should be Bahussuta and Visarada, Dhammadhara. They should be able to explain the Dhamma very well. They should be able to practice the Dhamma very well. Okay? And then not just they themselves, they should be able to encourage and help others, preach to others to be able to do the same thing. Okay, so in a way, this is a vow made by the Buddha, because he understood the importance of realizing this truth, and without making effort, one cannot really establish in this truth. So that is what we can understand from his determination. On the other hand, we also have to keep this in mind, that all these characteristics that are mentioned here, that one should possess, a disciple, especially a follower of the Buddha, should possess. This should also encourage us, all the followers of the Buddha, to take up this study and practice very, very seriously. So we should all focus on our own understanding of the teaching, if we are really keeping up with this vow of the Buddha. Yeah, so this is the English translation. Mara requested the Buddha, "O Lord, let the Blessed One come to his final passing away. Let the Happy One utterly pass away. The time has come for the Parinibbana of the Lord." Then the Buddha said, "I shall not come to my final passing away, evil one, until my bhikkhus, bhikkhunis, laymen, laywomen have come to be true disciples, wise, well-disciplined, apt and learned, preservers of the Dhamma, living according to the Dhamma, abiding by the appropriate conduct, and having learned the Master's word, are able to expound it, preach it, proclaim it, establish it, reveal it, explain it in detail, and make it clear, until when adverse opinions arise, they shall be able to refute them thoroughly and well, and to preach this convincing and liberating Dhamma." So this account you'd find Mahaparinibbana Sutta. Now this Mahaparinibbana Sutta you can find in the Digha Nikaya. This is one of the longest sutta in the collection of suttas. So whenever you have time, you can read through these suttas, because this provide you the last journey of the Buddha. And you would find that if you go through this sutta, it is a very, very, very moving account of the Buddha when he was, going to pass away, and then how he was traveling from one place to another, and then he was inviting, all the disciples close by to come together so that he can give them his last message, last teaching. And then everyone is becoming very, very emotional, including Ananda, who has been accompanying him. And then finally the Buddha, in the middle of this crowd, he announces his final passing away, and he says that this would be his last year, last Vassa, rains retreat, and after that he would be passing away. So you can find these descriptions in Mahaparinibbana Sutta. It also tells us how the legacy should follow, and he's giving this emphasis on Dhamma and Vinaya to be the teacher, to be regarded as the teacher after his passing away. So you can find the entire episode in this particular sutta. Now, when we talk about the establishment of Bhikkhuni Sangha, Bhikkhu Sangha, we have to, as I said, attach to this with this attainment of Buddha and his, refusal in the beginning to teach the Dhamma, and then later on his decision to teach the Dhamma to these 5 ascetics and so on. So the reason was very, very clear why he did not want to teach. One is that based on his own experience of 6 years of ascetic practice, he understood that it is not really very easy to, understand this truth. And then he realized that most of the people in the world are Patisotagami. They are against, this teaching is against this stream of the common people. So because they are, occupied with raga dosa and everything. So this teaching, which is against this stream, which is very, very deep and difficult, it is not easy for the common people to understand. So he was reluctant to teach. But then we find that with the request of Brahma Sahampati, he decided to teach. Okay, so I think I have mentioned it earlier that there are different explanations with regard to these episodes as well. Is it really a Brahma coming down to request him, or is it just his thoughts? So there are all these discussions, available in the scholastic, world. So if you take these legends and stories literally, you should understand that, Brahma Sahampati literally coming down and making a request. Otherwise, you can think of it in terms of his decision. He was making a decision, whether to take up this journey of a teacher or not. So this is what you would find in the Mahavagga account. I have selected several passages from this text. It is a lengthy account. Then the Lord, having emerged from that contemplation at the end of 7 days, approached the goatherd's banyan from the foot of the Rajayatana. Having approached, the Lord stayed there won to by me is deep, difficult to see, difficult to understand, peaceful, excellent, beyond dialectic, subtle, intelligible to the learned. But this is a creation delighting in sensual pleasure, delighted by sensual pleasure, rejoicing in sensual pleasure, so that for a creation delighting in sensual pleasure, delighted by sensual pleasure, rejoicing in sensual pleasure, these were a matter difficult to see. That is to say, causal uprising. So he was referring to this conditioned, conditionality or causality, the dependent arising that we have discussed earlier. And so if I were to teach Dhamma and others were not to understand me, this would be a weariness to me. This would be a vexation to me. And further, these verses not heard before in the past occurred spontaneously to the Lord. This that through many toils I have won, enough, why should I make it known? By folk with lust and hate consumed, this Dhamma is not understood. Leading on against this stream, subtle, deep, difficult to see, delicate, unseen, it will be by passion slaves, cloaked in the mark of ignorance. So this was the clear reason why he did not want to teach. But then he thought of his two teachers to whom he wanted to share his knowledge, but then he realized that they have passed away. Then he moved on to teach these 5 disciples. This is the account of Brahma Sampati coming down and making the request. So according to this account, Brahma Sahampati is giving some examples that, there has appeared in Magadha before you, the unclean Dhamma, by pure minds devised. Open this door of deathlessness, let them hear the Dhamma awakened to by the stainless one. As on a crag on crest of mountain standing, a man might watch the people far below. Even so do you, O wisdom fair, ascending, O seer of all, the terraced heights of truth, look down from grief released upon the peoples sunken in grief, oppressed with birth and age, arise, you hero, conquer in the battle, you freed from debt, man of the caravan, walk the world over, let the blessed one teach the Dhamma. They who learn will grow. So this is a request made by the Brahma Sahampati. Then there is the simile of lotus that was brought up in the discussion, which says that, when you look at the lotuses on a pond, you'd find there are some lotuses that are above the water. There are some, just in line with water. There are some under the water. There could be also different types of water. So similarly, it says that there could be people with less lust, less negative influence in their chitta santati, in their stream of consciousness. There are some with, major kind of negative psychological qualities in their chitta santati. So according to that, when you teach the Dhamma, those having little dust in their eyes, they would be able to understand the Dhamma. Those who are having, big amount of dust, probably they should create some new sankara, some positive ones that would lead them towards, the truth, realization of truth later on. And finally, Buddha says, Aparuta te sangamata sadwaram, yeso tavantu pamuchantu saddham, vihingsa sanye pagunang na bhasaing, dhammang panitang manjesu brahmeti. He finally opened the door of Dhamma. He says that open for those who hear are the doors of deathlessness. Let them renounce their faith, thinking of useless fatigue. I have not preached Brahma, the sublime and excellent Dhamma, to men. So finally he decides to open this door of deathlessness to the one who are faithful, who have little dust in their eyes. So this is an expression that you can, I think, reflect on. Amatassa dwaram, doors of deathlessness, right? So this teaching, this progression towards the awakening of enlightenment is regarded as, deathlessness, state of deathlessness. Yes. Of course, he would become a Sammasambuddha. That was a prediction, and that is what we find in the description. So there are different types of Buddhas, right? Sammasambuddha, Pacceka Buddha, and you can say Savaka Buddha, or sometimes they are called Anubuddha. So yeah, especially in the Theravada tradition, you have these particularly 3 types of Buddhas. As long as their destruction of asavas are concerned. Kinasava. So kinasava is the expression that is used for all these people. When somebody becomes an arahant, he is a kinasava. When somebody becomes a Pacceka Buddha, he is also a kinasava. And a Sammasambuddha is also a kinasava. Earlier I mentioned that the quality of arahant is one of the qualities of Buddha, right? So he's an arahant and much more, much more than arahant. So he's completely, fully enlightened one. But to be able to free from this samsaric journey, if you are free from asavas, all these negative qualities, you'd be able to attain Nibbana. That is the understanding. The difference between these 3 types of Buddhas are that Sammasambuddhas are the ones who attain enlightenment for the first time, and then they are considered to be the teacher of Deva and men, Satta Deva Manusana, right? Whereas Pacceka Buddhas are people who strive on the path themselves. They attain this Buddhahood or Arahanthood, and then with that understanding they pass away. They do not become teacher. They do not go on to teach others. And arahants are the people who become disciple of these Buddhas or even other arahants, and following their instructions, they become successful in their spiritual journey. So that is how these 3 types of enlightened beings are understood in the Theravada tradition. But when there is this, yes.
So my question is more on the prophecy itself. Like, for example, Sammasambuddhas, do they get a prophecy that they're going to become Sammasambuddha, and Pacceka Buddha, do they get the prophecy they're going to become Pacceka Buddha? Is the prophecy specific, or does the Buddha himself decide at the moment of enlightenment, okay, I'm going to teach, or I'm not going to teach? So, for example, Gautama Buddha, almost he decided that he did not want to teach, but then he decided to teach. So was that like part of his prophecy, or was it only his decision?
I think it is, connected to his prophecy, because when we look at this whole story of prophecy and also the Dhammata, what you can say, the dhammata, the nature of this Sambuddhas, you know, when they are supposed to be born as a Buddha, where, how they are going to be Buddha, what are the characteristics they should have. Of course, all these descriptions came up later in the later literature, but it was primarily connected to his prophecy. Otherwise, it says that he met most of the previous Buddhas, you know. So if he was just willing to become an Arahant, he would be able to do that under the instruction of all these different Buddhas. And I think this prophecy was not really, you know, that he would be a Pacheka Buddha. It was particularly directed towards this attainment of Samma Sambuddha, and then he would be able to help, you know, many other beings. That was mentioned there. But then, yes, your question is, he had to decide, right? He was not willing to teach in the beginning. And you would find that, I don't know, probably it was part of the tradition in India at that time, because even now, you would see that in the Theravada Buddhist tradition, especially, I'm not sure of how it is practiced in Mahayana Buddhist tradition, that when you know, a monk is not providing you Dhamma teaching or precepts uninvited, you know, so there should be someone to request him. Okay, if you are willing to listen to the Dhamma, so there should be someone to make a request to the monk to give the teaching. And when somebody is you know, willing to get precepts, for example, also, you know, there should be a request. So this is, I think, connected to this tradition on the one hand. The other is that, as I said, I think this is very, very practical, that you know, when he attained enlightenment, you know, he was just thinking about it, even though it was made a very big discussion, you know, later on, Brahma Sampati coming down to request him, and he had to really decide. But I think this is, you know, just part of his thinking, that, you know, whether to teach or not to teach, whether people will be able to understand or not. So he was making this decision, you know. I don't think it was taking that long time, you know. So
Yes.
yes, it was connected to his prophecy that he would become a Samma Sambuddha, not a Pacheka Buddha.
Okay, thank you, Disha.
Yes, so we have come across this previously, but I would, you know, stress on a few things here. So the first teaching and Kundanyas attainment of Sotapanna, you would find that, you know, he gained this Dhamma Chakku, and he expressed his experience in these words, Yang Kinchi Samudaya Dhammang Sabbantang Nirodha Dhammang. This statement is very, very important, because this signifies the understanding of this Paticca Samuppada. Okay, and you would find that when Buddha moved to Rajagaha, when he met Sariputta, before his meeting of Sariputta and Moggallana, they actually met Yasa, one of the 5 disciples of the Buddha. And when Sariputta met Yasa, Sariputta approached Yasa and asked, you know, you look very peaceful and your complexion is, you know, bright. Who is your teacher? Can you please tell me his message, his teaching? What does he teach? So Yasa uttered this statement to Sariputta. Yasa says that, you know, he's Samana Gautama, ascetic Gautama, I'm his student. And basically what he teaches is this, Yang Kinchi Samudaya Dhammang Sabbantang Nirodha Dhammante. Whatever that come to exist, whatever that arise must cease. So by hearing this particular statement, it says that Sariputta attained Sotapanna, you know, on that occasion, on his first meeting with Yasa, and then he went to look for his friend, and together they went to meet the Buddha. So this statement is very, very significant. If you remember this theory of Paticcasamuppada, imasming sati idang hoti, imas suppada idang uppajjati, imasming asati idang nahoti, imasa nirodha idang nirujjati, followed by the formula of 12 links of Paticcasamuppada. This could be another representation of this Paticcasamuppada. Okay, so this was his understanding. And then the second teaching was given, and all the 5 friends became arahant. So at that time, the expression was this. It says, asavehi chittani vimucchinsu. So their mind became completely freed from asava, defilements, all kinds of defilements. And you'd find this statement appearing in Mahavagga. It says, Thenako panasamayena chaloke arahanto honti. So at that moment, it says there are just 6 arahants in the world, including the Buddha, the 5 monks and the Buddha. Okay, but we need to keep in mind that they were not, monastic members in the sense that we see monastic members now. Okay, there is an entire discussion of, for example, when this particular outfit of monks have been decided and so on. Otherwise, as we know, there have been living a lot of different types of ascetics. So they have been wearing, this ascetic, they have been having this ascetic get-up and so on. So by the outlook, I think one is not able to decide who is a student of who, right? I think it was this ascetic practice was very, very common. And this procedure of, accepting somebody in the Sangha was not yet really formulated properly. Okay. Okay, now if we talk about the first ordination, when this Dhammachakku arose in these people, it is described in this way: Virajang Vitamalang Dhammachakku Mudapadi Yankinchi Samudaya Dhammang Sabbantang Nirodha Dhammante. This is represented as Sotapanna, right? And after that, they make a request to the Buddha that, please accept us as your student. Please, we would like to be ordained under you. Okay, ordained by you. Labeya ahang bante bhagavato santike pabbajang labeya upasampadanti. But as I said, a particular procedure was not still established. Then what the Buddha said is that ehi bhikkhuti swakato dhammo chara brahmacharyang samma dukkha santa kriyayati sava tesang ayasmantanang upasampada ahose. So this is how he accepted these people into his order. He just said, ehi bhikkhu, come bhikkhus, come ascetics, follow me, and practice this swakata dhamma, the teaching that is well explained, and live this holy life properly, this brahmacharya, chara brahmacharyang samma dukkhassa antakriyayati, to be freed, completely freed from the dukkha, live this holy life properly. Okay, so that is how he accepted this people who are willing to join the order. Okay, so this was the expression, ehi bhikkhu. The statement signifying arahantship. So this is a particular statement that you would find when somebody becomes an arahant, and normally they utter this statement, or this statement is associated with the attainment of arahantship. Kina jati bhusitang brahmacharyang katang karaniyang na parang itattayati pajanati. Kina jati means birth is destroyed. So the birth that is generally understood is no more for them. Vusitang Brahmacharyang. Their holy life, Brahmacharya life, spiritual life is perfected. Katang Karaniyang. What should be done has been done. What should be done in the sense that what should be done to be free from the asavas, to be free from defilements. All that is done. Na parangitattayati pajanati. And they know clearly that after this, there is no more coming into existence. So they are accepted as monastic member. They carry out the practice and they attain this state of arahanthood. That is the procedure. Okay. So in the beginning, the Buddha would provide the teaching. If people are convinced by the teaching, they would approach the Buddha. Normally, the procedure is explained to be, gaining faith. One has to be convinced by the teaching and has to generate faith. One has to have faith towards the teacher, right? And after that, the desire to be ordained. That means the desire to get pabbaja. That is leaving home and desiring to be a homeless person. And after that, getting instruction from the Buddhas or Arahants. And after that, carrying out the practice until one attains this state of Arahantship. So that was a very precise and direct procedure. So that was with, regard to these 5 months. After that, there is the story of Yasa. So this Yasa was a son of, a very famous, businessman. So it's a Setti, son of a Setti, millionaire. So, but he was not happy with his, worldly life. So his story is actually very much connected to the story of Siddhartha, Prince Siddhartha. So it says that just as in the case of Prince Siddhartha, who had, these 3 mansions, luxurious mansions for 3 different seasons, in the same way, Yasa also had 3 different mansions for 3 seasons, for summer, winter, and rainy season. See, so he was in a very, having a very comfortable life, but he was not happy with that. So he wanted to leave home. So the account is similar to the life of the Buddha when, people are sleeping, taking rest at night. He wanted to leave home. So when he left, he was uttering this statement, Upadutang vatabo, upasatang vataboti. What distress indeed, what affliction indeed. So this shows his dissatisfaction in the worldly life. He was not happy with his worldly life. So he was just, in his case, it is not mentioned that he was going to become an ascetic or anyone. He was just living. He was just going away from home. And then on the way, he met the Buddha. So when Yasa was passing by the place where the Buddha was living, uttering the same statement, the Buddha heard it and invited Yasa and said, Idang ko Yasa anupadutang idang anupasatang ehi Yasa nisida. Dhammang te tesisami iti. Buddha asked him, invited him to meet him. Buddha said that, come here, Yasa. There is no suffering, and dissatisfaction here. I will teach you the Dhamma. Then Yasa approached the Buddha. And after getting necessary instruction, Yasa became Buddha's disciple. But when Yasa left, his father, his mother, and wife, they were looking for him. So when they were looking for him, they approached the Buddha. And Buddha gave them this progressive talk to them. and they became first lay disciple of the Buddha. Now, one thing to notice here is that the Buddha did not give the same kind of teaching to, Yasa and his parents and wife. So he gave a particular type of teaching to Yasa and a different type of teaching to his parents and his wife. What do you think could be the reason? Sorry? Yeah. So this is called progressive talk that include dana kata, sila kata, sagga kata, and so on. The talk on giving, talk on moral practice, talk on heaven, how you are supposed to, be reborn in heavens. Anupubbikata. So the term used is anupubbikata as opposed to anupubbasikka. Anupubbasikka means gradual training. Anupubbikata refers to progressive talk. Okay, so there is entire discussion on these two expressions. You would find that there is this particular expression that is very often mentioned. When the mind of the people, of the audience is ready, then the Buddha started to talk about the Four Noble Truths, Paticca Samuppada, Tilakkhana, and so on. Until one's mind is not fully ready, he does not give this higher teaching. First of all, of course, I think he understands people's mind, what kind of teaching they require, right? So in the case of Yasa, and you would find in the case of these 5 friends, they were all initially trying to get something, some higher experience. They are not happy with their worldly life. But in the case of these people, Yasa's parents and his wife, they're just looking for Yasa. They are, they are not really dissatisfied in the sense, Yasa was dissatisfied with the worldly life. So they were not really ready to accept the higher teaching, right? So the Buddha decided to give them this progressive talk. Hearing the talk, they said, "Let the Lord accept us as lay disciple gone for refuge from this day forth for as long as life lasts." Thus they became the first lay disciples in the world using the three-word formula. Bhagavantang saranang gacchami, dhammancha bhikkhu sangancha, upasakang mang bhagava dharetu, sova loke patamang upasako hote. Now this expression, 3-word formula, is significant because we also find in some other occasion that before that there was some people, specifically these 2 merchants, they are called Tapasu and Baluka, right? It says that they were Divajika lay disciple of the Buddha, because it says when the Buddha attained enlightenment and he was just continuing his practice, and these 2 merchants, they were passing by this place where the Buddha was dwelling, and then they met the Buddha. So they approached him, and they listened to Buddha's talk, and after that they went to carry out their own activities, but they were happy with the talk of the Buddha. So they became lay follower of the Buddha. But at that time, Sangha was not established yet. So they took refuge in the Buddha and in the Dhamma. But this is the first time you have this, lay disciples, becoming lay disciples using this 3-word formula. that include Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. And after that, the four close friends of Yasa came to search for him. They also approached the Buddha, and similar to Yasa, they were ordained in the Sasana. And following them, another 50 friends came to look for Yasa, and they were also taught the same Dhamma by the Buddha. Yeah, so with these 50 friends joining this Sasana, it says Tena Kopana Samayana Ekasatti Loke Arahanto Hote. So at that time there were 61 Arahants in the world. So now this is before even the Buddha moved to this meet these three Kassapa brothers. So it seems like this is all happening within the first year after his attainment of awakening, right? And when there was 60 Arahants in the world, then the Buddha asked them to carry out the Dhamma mission, to spread the teaching to different directions. So this was his instruction. Atako Bhagava Bhikkhu Amantesi Muttvahang Bhikkave Sabba Pasehi Ye Dibba Ye Cha Manusa Tumhe Bhikkave Mutta Sabba Pasehi Ye Dibba Ye Cha Manusa Charata Bhikkave Charikang Bahujana Hitaya Bahujana Sukhaya Lokanukampaya Attaya Hitaya Sukhaya Deva Manusana Ma Ekena Dve Agamita Deseta Bhikkave Dhammang Adi Kalyanang Majje Kalyanang Pariyosana Kalyanang Sattang Sabhyanjanang Kevala Paripunnang Parisuddhang Brahmacharyang Pakaseta Sante Satta Aparajakha Jatika Asavanta Dhammassa Parihayanti Bhavissanti Dhammassa Anyataro Ahampi Bhikkave Yena Uruvela Senane Tena Upasankam Missami Dhamma Desanayati. So this was a particular instruction the Buddha gave to these 60 Arahants to go to different direction to teach the Dhamma. Even though his instruction was that Ma Ekena Dve Agamita, do not, two of you do not go to the same direction. So the reasoning could be that so that they can cover, a larger audience, they can benefit bigger number of people. But interestingly, when it says, for example, Ahampi Bhikkave Yana Uruvelaya Uruvela Sanani Nigamo Tena Sankam Nisami Dhamma Desanaya. He was saying that I will go to Uruvela Senani Gama, village of Senani, and I will teach the Dhamma to the people there. But we find that several of his disciples followed him. For example, Yasa, right? So he did not go alone. Yes, those doing MA, I think we are going to have a class for the methodology, right? So I'll try to bring up some of the discussion there, but I'd just like to mention a little bit here that Kundanya, I think it was Kundanya, yes. When the instruction was given, Kundanya went to Kapilavattu. So Kapilavattu is a place where Siddhartha was born, right? It is his parents and his relatives, everyone is there. And we come to know that all these different disciples, when they move to different directions, they taught the Dhamma, and then many other people joined the Sangha, right? So when Kundanya went to Kapilavattu, he also ordained so many people there. he was a disciple of the Buddha, right? And this is happening in the first few years. And Buddha, since he left Kapilavatthu, he did not go there for many years, right? So it seems that there have been many people joining this Sangha. They are aware of the teaching. Many of them did not meet the Buddha, right? But they are carrying out his teaching in their practice, becoming arahants. So, and by the outlook, by their external get-up, you cannot really differentiate who is a follower of Buddha, who is other ascetic and so on. So there is a kind of a confusion that was going on also, and we will be discussing more on this in the other class with regard to this particular sutta that I sent to you, because it is connected to that. And this has been happening in the first few years, as I say. Okay, and then the Buddha moved to Magadhan kingdom, Uruvela. Right? Why I am saying this is because many of these people who are joining the Sangha, when they are carrying out their practice, many of them were desiring to meet the Buddha. Who is the Buddha? You know, whose teaching we are following. We would like to meet him, where we can meet him. And we have to keep this in mind that 2,500 years back, you know, the situation was not like now. You are willing to meet somebody and you can make your decision, and then, you know, within few days you can go and meet, right? So it was not anything like that. In the instruction, you can see that first of all, he is referring to this. He's you know, asking the monk to teach the Dhamma for the benefit and for the happiness of the people, right? But how they are supposed to provide the teaching. So he's providing specific instruction. Satang Sabhyanjana. Okay, not just the words. So he's telling them that do not just repeat the formula, do not just utter them, try to explain them, right? Do not just utter the words, but explain their meanings as well. Because this teaching is Adi Kalyanam, Madhya Kalyanam, Pariyosana Kalyanam. When you take up the practice, and when you are in the middle of your practice, and at the end of your practice, it should provide you Kalyana, benefit. You should be benefited by that. So that is in a way a kind of, how do you say, when you want to really measure your own practice, if it is really benefiting you, are you really being benefited by this practice? If you are not benefited by that, either there is something wrong with the instruction or with your practice, or probably you have to, you know, get some more clarification. Yeah, this is just English translation. Mara's intervention again. So when this Sangha was established, Mara approached the Buddha again. Now that your Sangha is established, here up to now actually Bhikkhu Sangha and probably some lay disciples. So Mara is making the same request to the Buddha that, you know, now probably you can attain Parinibbana. Buddha was still, you know, refusing. He said that my mission is not completed yet. So when talking about ordaining people into the Sangha, there was this idea, according to the description in the Mahavagga, that people normally wanted to be accepted in the Sasana, you know, by the Buddha. So people were just thinking that I would like to meet the Buddha, and then I request the Buddha to accept me in the Sasana. So this was a general tendency. Then the Buddha thought that it is not possible for me alone to accept everyone in the sasana, right? I cannot meet everybody, and I will get tired of doing that, and people would be bored also. People would get tired also. How long they can wait for me, you know? Then the Buddha decided that I should, authorize all these monks, senior monks, to carry out the duty, so that they can, ordain people in the sasana. So this was his thought. Etarahi ko bhikkhu nana disa nana janapada papaja pekka upasampada pekka ananti. So there are people in different places, different regions, and different countries who are wishing to join the order, to be ordained. Bhagavate pabbajessati upasampadesati. Let the Blessed One accept me as his student. So that is their wish. Tattha bhikkhu cheva kilamanti pabbajje pekkacha upasampada pekkacha. It would be difficult. It would not be so easy, especially for the Buddha alone to carry out all these activities. Yanunahang bhikkhunang anujaneyang tumheva idane bhikkave tasu tasu disasu tesu tesu janapadesu pabbajeta upasampadeta. So he came up with this idea that he's saying, "O bhikkhus, whatever direction you go, in all these different places, when people are willing to join the order, understanding their mentality, understanding their faith and conviction, I give you the authority that you accept them in the sasana." Now here you would find Tisaranagamana Pabbajja Upasampada. So this could be another procedure. Okay. One can join this asana by just accepting this 3 Sangha as their refuge, 3 jewels, 3 Tiratana, Tisarana as their refuge. Anujanami bhikkave tumhe vadani tasu tasu disasu tesu tesu janapadesu pabbajeta upasampadethati evancha pana bhikkave pabbajje tabbo upasampadethabbo patamang kesamassum oharetva kasayani battani achadetva ekamsam uttarasangam karapetva bhikkhunan pade vandapetva ukkutikang nisidapetva anjaling pagganhapetva evam vadehiti battabbo buddhang saranang gacchami dhammang saranang gacchami sanghang saranang gacchami dutiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami dutiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami dutiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami tatiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami tatiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami tatiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami anujanami bhikkave imehi tihi saranagamanehi pabbajjang upasampadanti. So before somebody is accepting these 3 jewels as their refuge, there is another particular instruction that is given. So here you would find a kind of how do you say, formulation of a procedure for accepting somebody in the sasana. So when the Buddha gave this authority to the monks, he said that first ask them to shave their head. Okay, that is first. Second is they have to have this kasayani vattani, this cloth of an ascetic, kasaya vatta, saffron, what is it called in English? Saffron rope or something, I don't know. So this cloth, they should have. Ekamangsang uttara sangang karapetva. So you have to, wear this cloth in a particular way. Ekamangsang uttara sangang karapetva. Covering one side of your body the way normally in Theravadan countries we see monastic members wear robes, especially when they are in the temple, right? Because when they go out, they wear the robe differently. Bhikkhunaṃ pāde bandhāpetva. So they should be paying respect to the monks before them, right? The monks that are becoming this particular people's teacher, or that are, functioning as teacher, to accept the candidate into sasana. Bandhāpetva. So he should pay respect to the monks. Ukkutikang nisidāpetva. Anjaling paganhāpetva. So with folded hand, he should sit in a, how do you say, Ukkutikang nisidāpetva? I don't know the English term for this. Ukkutikang nisidāpetva. He should sit in a particular posture. He should pay respect to the monks, and then utter this formula of taking refuge in the three jewels. That is how one should be accepted into the Sangha. Okay, so this is the instruction given. After that, there is a different discussion. Any questions so far?
Sir, Theravada Buddhism, how many have the pair type?
Sorry? I did not understand. You can write down in the chat box also if you have a particular question. Or we can move on to probably this another episode. Yeah, just this one before the break. Yeah. Now this is another occasion when the Buddha moved from Isipatana to Uruvela. So he was dwelling in this, forest, and then he encountered these 30 men, 30 friends. They went to this Uruvela group, with their wives, to have a kind of picnic or amusement. But it says that a lady steals their belongings. While looking for her, they encounter the Buddha and ask if the Buddha has seen a lady with their belongings. So you have detailed account of this story in the text I sent to you. So it says that out of these 30 men, 29 has got, their own wife. The other one did not have his wife, so they, got a woman for him. So altogether, these 30 men with their female partner went to this forest for amusement. And this lady, when people are busy with their amusement and so on, this lady took all their belongings and ran away. So they were all looking for this lady, and then they met the Buddha. Then they asked the Buddha if he has seen this lady with their belongings. Then the Buddha said, "What do you think, young man? Which is better for you? That you should seek for a woman, or that you should seek for the self within you?" So the Buddha posed this question to them, and then they were, shocked by the question, and it kind of forced them to think, right? And then it says that in the beginning, the Buddha gave them graduated talk, and then after that, they were convinced by the teaching of the Buddha and wanted to join the order. Now all this is significant, especially when you look at the Buddha Sasana as a whole in the time of the Buddha, how it is extended to different directions. And then also there were arguments, and there were, how do you say, objections against the Buddha Sasana, based on which later on we have so many different rules in the Vinaya or in the Upasampada procedure. If you focus on this episode, for example, when the Buddha was talking to them, they were convinced by the teaching of the Buddha and they wanted to join. So they were leaving their female partner, right? And they were leaving home. This was one of the problems at that time, that many men are joining different ascetic groups. They are leaving home, they are leaving their families. So from their families, there was this objection to the Buddha and to other ascetic groups, that these samanas, these ascetics, are stealing their men, right? So and we have to keep it in mind that the society was particularly running by this male community, right? Basically dependent on men. So in that condition, if men are leaving home, I think it is a big problem for the family. So later on, the Buddha decided that it is not a good idea to just teach to everyone and then accept them in the order. So he provided some rules that before you join the order, you have to get permission from your wife, your family members, your father or mother. They should agree that to your decision that you want to leave home. So that is how we find a lot of different rules came to exist later on. Okay. So did you count so far how many people joined the order since the attainment of Buddha's enlightenment until this conversion of these 30 men? No? 60 plus 30, 90, right? Yeah. And then after that, he met these three Kassapa brothers. So there is a long discussion on this conversion of these three Kassapa brothers. I would suggest you to go through this episode from the text. It is really, really interesting because, again, here, these are three people who are focusing on ascetic practice, and they themselves have got a big following. Uruvela Kassapa, Nadi Kassapa, and Gaya Kassapa. So Uruvela Kassapa has got 500 ascetic following him. Nadi Kassapa had 300 people following him. Gaya Kassapa had 200 people following him. Okay, so one after the other, the Buddha met all three of them. And as you can see here, as I have mentioned, Buddha was tested with 16 psychic powers, and finally the three brothers with their followers became disciples of the Buddha. So it says that the fame of these three Kassapa brothers as ascetics and as a spiritual teacher was quite widespread. So people knew about them and their practice. And it seems that in terms of age, they were, senior to the Buddha. Okay, so they have been carrying out their practice for a longer period of time, right? And they had a particular understanding of ascetic life and spiritual attainment. That is why Buddha had to, display psychic powers to convince them, because they have not been easily accepting the teaching of the Buddha, and also they are not ready to accept the Buddha to be someone who, has attained the enlightenment, because Buddha was quite young at that time. And even after displaying several psychic powers, after displaying each psychic power, they would say that, okay, you have this ability, you can show us this psychic power, but still, we do not think that you have really, understood the truth. You are a Buddha or you are an Arahant. Then the Buddha had to display other psychic power and so on. So one of the psychic power, the first one, I guess, was that when the Buddha went to meet this Uruvela Kassapa, he was passing by this place and he went to this ashrama and he wanted to spend the night there. Then Uruvela Kassapa, said that, okay, you can spend the night here, but we do not have enough space. There is a kuti there. You can go and stay there. Nobody goes to stay there. But be careful that there is a, poisonous snake. So you have to be careful of that. Then the Buddha said that it's okay. I can live with the snake. So he went to stay there. And then in the middle of the night, this Kassapa with his students, were witnessing that some kind of smoke coming out of this place, this kuti. So it says that this snake is very poisonous and it is always angry. So when it is angry, it releases some kind of smoke or something. And when the Buddha was staying there, he thought that I have to, use my psychic power and I have to create similar kind of smoke so that this snake understands that, this smoke that is produced by the Buddha is much more powerful and the snake cannot really bear it, right? So that was the thing that was going on. And then after that, the snake was tired and so on. And later on in the morning, everyone was waiting, to see what happened. Then in the morning, they were surprised to see that Buddha was coming out with the snake on his, bowl. So they were surprised, but still they don't accept that Buddha was an enlightened being. So that is how gradually he had to show 16 psychic powers. In some of the psychic powers, it includes, for example, description of like, in the middle of a night, some devas coming down to meet the Buddha, to pay respect to the Buddha, or to have some conversation and so on. Brightening this forest, these woods, and this ascetics becoming surprised by that. Okay, but finally, they are all convinced by the teaching of the Buddha. So when the Buddha reached Magadhan kingdom, he was accompanied by his Kassapa brothers and their disciples. So all these 16 psychic powers are mentioned in the text. You can look at their description in the text. Mahavaka. So yeah, so after that the Buddha moved to Magadhan kingdom. So I think we can discuss it later because there are some things that I have to provide in the description. Before that, I think we can have a break. So probably you can come back at 3:50, right? Now it is 3:25. Any questions so far? Is there any disturbance with the network today? Or was it okay?
No, it was very good, teacher.
Okay. Okay,
Teacher,
then.
I have a question.
Okay.
3 Catholic brother cancel Samana or Yamana, teacher?
They were samana, they are not.
Samana.
Yes, samana.
Thank you, teacher. Thank you.
Yeah, so Brahminic system was quite different. It was a time when samana movement was really flourishing.
Thank you, teacher.
It could be that they belong to Brahmin group, you see. So there are, even
Yes.
when you look at the Buddha's sasana, there are a number of people joining from Brahmin caste. Sariputta, Moggallana, and all these people, they are Brahmins. And some
Yes.
of them are learned Brahmins.
Yes.
See? So by birth, they could be Brahmin, but the path they are following was a
Yes.
samana path.
Yes, teacher. Thank you, teacher. Thank you.
Okay, so let's have a break now, and we meet after the break. Okay, so yeah, so we have been talking about Buddha's mission of spreading the Dhamma to different people, and accepting people into his order as monastic member. So yeah, so if you remember, after this conversion of the 60 arahants, he asked them to go to different directions to carry out the teaching to different people, to provide teaching to different people. He also gave them the authority of accepting people into the Sangha, and he himself decided to come to Uruvela and then finally to Magadhan kingdom. So when he was passing by Uruvela, he met these 3 Kassapa brothers who he converted into his order, and together with these 3 Kassapa brothers, their followers also joined the sasana, right? Then together with this group, the Buddha went to Rajagaha. Yeah, so he started his journey from Sarnath, and then Uruvela, then to Rajagaha. So by the time he went to Rajagaha, it says that people have been gathering around him, and they were in a way celebrating his coming into this Rajagaha city, and they have been reciting this verse normally that we recite in our chanting, morning and evening chanting, when we pay respect to the Buddha. So this is a formula that we find being mentioned in suttas, in different texts. This represents the qualities of the Buddha. Itipi so bhagava arahang samma sambuddho vijjacharana sampanno sugato lokavido anuttaro purisa dhamma sarati satta deva manussanam buddho bhagava. So these represent 9 qualities of the Buddha. So it says that people have been celebrating the Buddha, paying respect to him, and then talking about his qualities. So this King Bimbisara came to know about it, and then immediately he went to meet the Buddha. And then there were a lot of people. King went to meet the Buddha, and then it says that there was this question of who is actually the Buddha. So there was this question in the mind of common people, because and there were a lot of other ascetics, especially these 3 Kassapa brothers with their jata, so matted hair on their head, and Buddha is looking very, very young. So they had this question in their mind: Kinnuko Mahasamano Uruvela Kassape Brahmacharyang Charati Udahu Uruvela Kassapo Mahasamano Brahmacharyang Charati. So this specific question says that, is it this Mahasamana who is Gautama? Is it this Mahasamana practicing Brahmacharya life under Mahakassapa, under Uruvela Kassapa, or is it this Uruvela Kassapa actually following Mahasamana? So this was the confusion, and it says that these Kassapa brothers, they came to know about it, and then they came before the Buddha and bowed down to the Buddha. They paid respect to the Buddha, and this by doing this gesture, they made it clear that they are actually following the Buddha. Okay, so between the Buddha and 3 brothers had a Dhamma discussion, at the end of which 3 brothers worshipped the Buddha. The king listens the Dhamma and attains Sotapanna and becomes a lifetime follower of the Buddha. So as we know, among the supporter of the Buddha Sasana, King Bimbisara is one of the main supporter. Others being, for example, Visakha, Anathapindika, and some other people who have been supporting Buddha Sasana in the time of the Buddha. So it says that in that particular occasion, after hearing the Dhamma discussion between the Buddha and Kassapa brothers in the gathering, Bimbisara got his Sotapanna. And it is a really, I think, wonderful account, because you can understand that when some leader of a country becomes virtuous and righteous, then definitely he is going to support this particular faith, and he's going to be a righteous king in the country, right? So I think it was a wonderful event that the king met the Buddha, and in his first meeting he understood the teaching of the Buddha. So you can say that he attained this Dhamma Chakku, the vision of truth, right? Yeah. And then in the same area, same place, the Buddha meets these 2 of his most important disciples. They are called 2 chief disciples. One is Sariputta, the other is Moggallana. So as you would find in the description, one day morning Assaji goes for alms round in the city. Sariputta is pleased to see his behavior, which is pleasant and full of serenity. He then asks Assaji, who is your master? Your reverence, your faculties are quite pure, your complexion very bright, very dear. Who is your teacher? Asaji then tells him in a verse those things which proceed from a cause. Of this the truth finder has told the cause, and that which is there stopping, the great recluse has such a doctrine. So he is a Mahasamana. Say, I'm a student of Mahasamana, and this is what he teach. Sariputta
And the verse
becomes.
is, and the
Sorry?
verse is, teacher, I want to recite it. Om ye dharma hetu parvava hetun teshan tathagato hevada teshan chayo niroda evam vadi mahasramana.
Yeah, right. True. Yeah. So that is the verse that was uttered. And then it says that, by hearing this verse, Sariputta becomes Sotapanna, and then he informs his friend Mugalan. Later, both of them go to meet the Buddha in the temple, okay, in the monastery. So that is how they join the sasana. Now, this much is, I think, sufficient to talk about the establishment of Bhikkhu Sangha especially. We will then, we have to now move on to discuss a little bit about the establishment of Bhikkhuni Sasana, Bhikkhuni Sangha. So these are some of the fundamental rules that you'd find being mentioned and, provided for the monastic members. Here you would find 10 precepts for the novice monk especially, 10 wholesome and unwholesome actions. I think we have discussed earlier in the discussion of Noble Eightfold Path, right? And this is a general description of actions performing in 3 different doors. So these are particular precepts given for the monastics, 227 Vinaya rules for monks and 311 for nuns, right? And they are categorized into different sections: Parajika, Sanghadisesa, Aniyata, Nissagya Pachitya, Patidesaniya, Sekya, Adhikarana Samatha. So there are different numbers. Here it says, for example, Chattaro Parajika. So there are 4 Parajika Dhamma, Terasa Sanghadisesa, 13 Sanghadisesa Dhamma, 2 Aniyata, 2 Aniyata rules, Tingsa Nissagya Pachitya. There are 30 rules called Nissagya Pachitya, 2 Navati Pachitya. There are 92 rules under this category, Pachitya, and then Chattaro Patidesaniya, 4 Patidesaniya rules, and then Sekya, there are 75 Sekya rules, and then 7 Adhikarana Samatha, 7 extra rules. So, and this shows the number of rules for nuns. Atta Parajika Dhamma, so here you have 8 Parajika Dhamma. In the case of monk, here you find 4, but here it is doubled. Satta Rasa Sanghadisesa, 17 Sanghadisesa Dhamma. Tingsa Nissagya Pachitya, 30 Nissagya Pachitya Dhamma. Chasatti Sata Pachitya Dhamma, 166 Pachitya Dhamma. Atta Patidesaniya, 8 Patidesaniya Dhamma, and same number of Sekya, and then 7 Adhikarana Samatha. So in English they are translated as expulsion from Sangha, temporary expulsion, undetermined offense, confession with penalty, confession, rules to be confessed, rules of training, rules of settling disputes. But this number of rules came later, after when Sangha is fully established. Okay, but before that, we know that these rules come in the Pratimoksha. They are called Pratimoksha rules, or Pratimoksha, right? In the Vinaya section, you'd find them being mentioned in the Vibhanga section, especially. But different rules are mentioned here and there in different volumes. There are 5 volumes in the Vinaya category, in the Theravada canon, Pali canon. Yeah, so two types of Pratimoksas. Pratimoksas are discussed basically. One is called Ovada Pratimoksha, the other is Anapatimokha. So Ovada Pratimoksha is just a very simple principle that is, provided in the very beginning by the Buddha to all these monks. At that time, it was not very complex. So the monastic number of monastic member was very small, so it was not necessary. And everyone that is joining this Sangha, they had just this one single goal in mind, I guess, to to be free from the samsara. So they have been really focused in their practice. So all these rules were not necessary. But Anapatimokha discusses about all these different rules, but they came to exist much later. Okay, so in the description of Anapatimokha, you have all these different rules: 227, 311 rules. Okay, now more about the life of monastic member and their requirements. It says that the path of monasticism is open for all, but the Kulaputta or young man of good family is encouraged to join the order. But if he is not happy with the life, anytime he can leave the Sangha. Now there are occasions where you would find, even in the early Buddhist literature, that there have been monastic members who were not really enjoying their monastic life. Probably they were not able to really grasp fully the teaching, so they were trying to leave the sasana. And then in some cases, when Buddha was informed, or other senior monks were informed, they provided them a different type of guidance. Because we are talking about this different number of rules, sometimes it feels that you cannot even remember which is which rules. So one would get confused by the number of rules. And there was an occasion of a particular person who was a lay disciple in the beginning, and he has been following these 5 precepts quite happily. And then after few months, he wanted to upgrade his practice. So he wanted to follow some more precepts. So he took, it says that he took 8 precepts. And after practicing 8 precepts for some times, he wanted to join the Sangha as a samanera, as a novice monk. So he said, I want to be admitted in the monastic group. So he was given 10 precepts, Dasa Sila. And he was happy with these 10 precepts. And after that, he wanted to get full ordination. And when he got his full ordination, Upasampada, these 227 rules were spoken to him. And then after that, he went to forest. He found a particular place to carry out his practice, but he was too much worried about breaking any specific rules. So it was always troubling him. He was very, very serious about each rule. So he was very careful, and he found that it was not very easy to preserve all these rules. And he tried many times, but he failed. And then later on, he was dissatisfied with his monastic life, and he wanted to leave the Sangha, the Sasana. So when he decided to leave, he told his teacher, his teacher explained to him that, it happens, but you have to be careful about the major and minor rules and so on. So gradually you'd be able to cope with the practice. But it seems like he was not happy at all. So later on, it was reported to the Buddha. Then the Buddha said, okay, if he wants to leave, he can leave. But before leaving, ask him to come and meet me. So before leaving, he went to pay his last homage to the Buddha. Then the Buddha said that, what is the problem exactly? Then he explained the entire episode from his, as a lay follower until he's becoming a fully ordained monk, and the difficulties that he's facing. Then the Buddha said that, okay, maybe I can help you, I will give you just 3 precepts, you know. So he was surprised that, you know, these 227 precepts would be reduced to just 3 precepts. And then he was very eager to know about this, and he said that I have been practicing 5 precepts, 8 precepts, and 10 precepts, and I did not have any problem. So why I cannot, you know, practice 3 precepts? It should be easier for me. Then the Buddha said that you just guard your, you know, body, speech, and mind. Okay, 3 doors. You just guard your body, speech, and mind. And if you remember, the same instruction the Buddha gave to his son Rahula when we have been studying Rahulovada Sutta. I think it was in the 2nd or 3rd lecture. I mentioned it, and the Buddha particularly mentioned in this Rahulovada Sutta that, you know, those enlightened beings who have attained enlightenment, those sages in the past, and they have been following this simple principle. Those sages who are trying to attain enlightenment now, in the present moment, they are also following this simple principle. And those that will try to become enlightened later on in future, they would also follow the same principle, and that is being reflective about one's own action that is performed by body, speech, and mind. So the instruction was that before performing an action, during the time of, you know, performing a particular action, and after performing a particular action with body, speech, and mind, one should reflect carefully if it is originating from negative psychological qualities, you know, if it is accompanied by negative psychological qualities, or positive ones, if it is going to bring benefit to oneself and others, or going to be harmful to oneself and others. So this was the teaching that is given by the Buddha to his son Rahula. And it seems that in this particular story also, when there is a discussion of so many rules and principles, the Buddha gave same teaching to this particular monk, and he was very happy. And then later on he remained as a monk, and it says that he was very successful in his practice. Okay, so the sasana is open to everyone, unlike in the Brahminic system, where only the Brahmins have been carrying out their practice, study, and everything. Others are not allowed to read or follow their way of life. In the Samana movement, Samana system, and especially in the Buddha Sasana, Buddha's dispensation, all were welcome, right? Regardless of caste, color, and so on. And we find that when a number of young men from Sakyan kingdom, from Sakyan family, Sakyan clan, wanted to join Buddha's order, there was Upali in that group, and Upali was not a prince. He was not belonging to this Sakyan clan of people. He was a barber. He belongs to a lower caste, and he used to cut hairs of all these people, you know. But then when they went to join Buddha Sasana, Upali also followed them. Upali said that, you know, I would also like to have an experience of living this monastic life, spiritual life. And when all of them went to meet the Buddha allowed Upali first, because it says that Buddha thought that maybe if he gave ordination to all the princes first, and then Upali at the end, then probably they would look down at Upali. So Buddha made Upali the first monk among the group. Okay, and later on we find that Upali's contribution was enormous in the preservation of Vinaya, right? He was following Vinaya strictly, and he was preserving them. He was keeping them in memory, and later on he played a very, very important role in the preservation and transmission of this Vinaya in the first council especially. Okay, now here you see that monastic life depends on the generosity of lay Sangha for their 4 requisites, and this is, I think, a common knowledge for all of us. This Chatupachaya, Indapata, Chivara, Senasana, and Bhesajja. So all these 4 Pachayas monastic member receive from the lay society, lay Sangha. 3 robes for months, Antaravasaka, Uttara Sangha, and Sangati. So these 3 robes were decided in the beginning. So one should have these 3 robes. 2 more for Bikunis, a belt, and Sankasika, and a skirt, Kusulaka. Other equipments are alms bowl, a belt, a razor, a needle, and a strainer. So nowadays, when somebody becomes a summoner also, there are basically these 8 things that should be there, right? Including all this bowl, belt, razor, needle, strainer. What are the daily activities? Early rise, chanting, going for alms round, cleaning temple area, studying, meditating. Going for alms round is practiced widely in Thailand. I think in Myanmar also. I did not see it very much in Sri Lanka. Maybe in some temples, in some places, they still practice. Yeah, but it is widely seen in Thailand. Nowadays, probably it is not so much, probably just being practiced in the village areas because of this COVID, I guess. Yeah. Also, attending to Upasana confession twice a month. Okay, normally. So, as far as my experience concerned, of course, I think from the description from the description in the text, we know that in the time of the Buddha, it was a a rule for the monks to engage in this Upasana confession twice a month, even if somebody is an Arahant. So there was this discussion, a thought arose in the mind of an Arahant when this monk became an Arahant, and then he was thinking that now that I have completed my duty as a brahmacharya, as a practitioner, follower of the Buddha, shall I join this Upasana twice a month or not? And then it says that Buddha told him that even though you have completed your spiritual journey, you have attained what should be attained in the practice, it is good if you join the Upasana. So that was advised. So what I was telling is that from my own experience in Thailand especially, I found that it is practiced in 2 different ways. In some places, in some monasteries, it is practiced throughout the year. So twice a month you have to join this Upasana. But in some other places, it is practiced only during the time of rain retreat, 3 months. So in the south especially, I noticed that now we are having this rain retreat, right? But we cannot go anywhere. Normally we go to central temple. All the monks gather together, about 200-300 monks, to do this recitation. In the south, it happens in this 3 months time during the Vassa. But in the Salaya area, close to Bangkok, there I saw that throughout the year it is practiced, not just during the time of these 3 months. So it depends on different monasteries, I think, and different areas. Okay, now let's discuss about the establishment of Bikuni Sangha. So it says that in the 5th year of the Buddha's ministry, the Buddha was staying at Vesali when he heard that his father, King Suddhodana, was ill. He decided to visit him again at Kapilavatthu to teach him the Dharma and made the long journey. After hearing the Dhamma, the king immediately attained arahantship and passed away peacefully 7 days later. It was in this year that the order of nuns was founded at the request of Mahapajapati Gautami, the aunt and foster mother of the Buddha. 3 times she approached the Buddha and asked him to ordain her into the Sangha, but each time the Buddha refused, giving no reason at all. After the Buddha had stayed at Kapilavatthu a while, he journeyed back to Vesali. Pajapati Gautami was a determined lady and would not be so easily discouraged. She had a plan to get her way. She cut her hair, put on yellow garments, and surrounded by a large number of Sakyan ladies, walked 150 miles from Kapilavatthu to Vesali. When she arrived at Vesali, her feet were swollen, and her body was covered with dust. She stood outside the hall where the Buddha was staying and she was with tears on her face, still hoping that the Buddha would ordain her as a nun. Ananda was surprised to see her in this condition. Gautami, why are you standing here like this? He asked. Venerable Ananda, it is because the Blessed One does not give permission for women to become nuns, she replied. Wait here, Gautami, I will ask the Blessed One about this. Ananda told her. When Ananda asked the Buddha to admit Mahapajapati Gautami as a nun, the Buddha refused. Ananda asked 3 times, and 3 times the Buddha refused. So Ananda put the request in a different way. Respectfully, he questioned the Buddha, Lord, are women capable of realizing the various stages of sainthood as nuns? They are, Ananda, said the Buddha. If that is so, Lord, then it would be good if women could be ordained as nuns, said Ananda, encouraged by the Buddha's reply. If Ananda Mahapajapati Gautami would accept the 8 conditions, it would be regarded that she has been ordained already as a nun. When Ananda mentioned the conditions to Mahapajapati Gautami, she gladly agreed to abide by those conditions and automatically became a nun. Before long, she attained arahantship. The other Sakyan ladies who were ordained with her also attained arahantship. Yeah, so this is the brief episode of how Bikuni Sangha established with the request of Mahapajapati Gautami. So Buddha went to visit Kapilavatthu. He says in the 5th year of his, 5th year after he became a Buddha. So, and we know that it is on that occasion that Rahula wanted to follow Buddha. Nanda also joined the order. Nanda is a cousin of Buddha, the son of Mahapajapati Gautami. And he provided teaching to Suddhodana. And now Mahapajapati Gautami herself wanted to join the order, but the Buddha refused, right, in the beginning. And later on, Buddha moved from that place to Vesali. And these Sakyan ladies walked, it says, as far as 150 miles. I think it is quite really unthinkable, unimaginable. And then finally, with the request of Ananda, Mahapajapati Gautami and all the other Sakyan ladies were accepted as Sangha members. They were ordained by the Buddha. So that is how female Sangha was established. Right? Yeah, this with these 8 conditions, but of course there is discussion with regard to these 8 Garudhamma, 8 heavy rules, right? They are called Garudhamma. So yeah, so it is said that it was really a revolutionary, movement taken by the Buddha, because if you recall, it was happening in a society that is primarily dominated by Brahmins, right? First of all, it was a Brahminic society. Secondly, probably there was no, nuns or female Sangha in any other school at that time, So it was, I think, not easy for the Buddha to start this female Sangha, because the Sangha has to be supported by laity, and laity has to agree to support them, right? Male Sangha or female Sangha, apart from all the other kind of challenges, right? So finally, the Buddha gave ordination to Mahapajapati Gautami and the other Sakya ladies. Now, there is at the present moment, for example, there is a discussion of this Bikuni Sangha, establishment of Bikuni Sangha, especially in the Theravadin countries, because Bikuni Sanghas are present in Mahayana countries, right? But in the Theravadin countries, it is not so much. Nowadays, even though you have Bikuni Sangha in different countries, in Thailand, you have Bikuni Sangha. In in Myanmar, I'm not sure. In Sri Lanka, there are some Bikuni Sangha. So, but there are some controversies because of several reasons. One is that there was no Bikuni Sangha in the Theravada tradition for a long period of time. So, establishing the Bikuni Sangha now, there are some legal challenges that these monastic members are discussing. For example, when we talk about Buddha ordaining people and then Buddha giving permission to the monks to ordain other people, there is a discussion of if Buddha gave permission to the monks to ordain bhikkhunis. This is one question, for example, right? And we find that in the description of Vinaya, we find that it says that bhikkhuni should be ordained by two sanghas, two group of sanghas, bhikkhu sangha and bhikkhuni sangha. So in that case, since there is no bhikkhuni sangha for a long period of time, so there is only one possibility that they should be ordained by bhikkhu sangha, right? But then there is other argument that says that we have bhikkhuni sangha in the Mahayana tradition. Why can't we, invite them and then allow them to help establish this sangha? So all these discussions are going on, but I think that it depends on situation. The situation in the time of the Buddha was different, so he was not in the beginning, willing to accept them in the sasana, but later on, when probably he thought that the society is ready, he accepted them. And I find that if the society is ready now, they can be accepted in the sasana. I think I don't see any problem at all. Okay, these rules could be discussed. So that is briefly the episode of establishment of the Bhikkhuni Sangha. If someone is willing to write an essay on the establishment of Bhikkhu Sangha or Bhikkhuni Sangha, one can, choose this topic. So these are the 8 rules, and as I said, there are controversies with regard to these 8 rules, if they were really spoken by the Buddha or were they later, addition. Okay, so there is this condition. So you can look at these rules. You can find, in many places they are mentioned. So basically, what these rules tell you is that the bhikkhunis, even though they join the sasana, they have to be protected and they have to follow the male monastic sangha. They have to have their teacher or guidance as male monastic sangha. Okay, and they have to get suggestions and teachings time to time from the male monastic sangha. So that is what it is mentioned basically. Okay, now let's discuss a little bit about the lay sangha. You want to say something? Is there Bhikkhuni Sangha in Thailand? You know this famous Bikuni, what is her name? Dhammadinna? Dhammadinna, her name? Yeah. There are Bikuni Sanghas. Yes. Okay, let's discuss about lay Sangha. So when we talk about lay Sangha, if you remember earlier, we have been talking about accepting, common people into this monastic Sangha by, following this 3 refuge formula of Buddhang Saranang Gacchami, Dhammang Saranang Gacchami, and Sanghang Saranang Gacchami. More or less, it is the same formula that was provided to the laity together with these 5 precepts. Okay, so first of all, you have to take refuge in the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha, and then you take these 5 precepts. That is how one becomes a lay disciple, right? So these are the 5 precepts. Panati pata veramani sikkapadang samadhyami. Adinna dana veramani sikkapadang samadhyami. Kamesu michachara veramani sikkapadang samadhyami. Musavada veramani sikkapadang samadhyami. Sura meraya majja pamadattana veramani sikkapadang samadhyami. Right? So these are 5 rules. First is restraining from killing or harming any living being. Second is not stealing, okay, not taking what is not given, what is not offered. Third is avoiding sexual misconduct. Fourth is avoiding lying or harsh speech and so on. Last one is refraining from intoxicant drinks. Okay, so these are the 5 rules. Other duties for lay disciple, for example, you would find in the Sigalovada Sutta, respecting these 6 directions, taking care of one's parents, respecting the teachers. That is right. Yeah, that is said to be one of the rule. That is why I said, because of all these rules, there is discussion if they are later insertion or if they were really given by the Buddha, so people have been discussing about it. Some do not agree to these 8 rules. This rule is also mentioned there. That is true. And yeah, taking care of wife and husband, friends and associates, servants and employees, ascetics and Brahmins. So they are considered as 6 different directions. If you want to know more about the duties of lay follower, lay disciple, you can look at this Rahulovada Sutta in the Digha Nikaya. Okay, a little bit about the interdependency of monastic and lay Sangha. The monastic community consisting of monks and nuns, and the lay community consisting of upasakas and upasikas are presented to coexist interdependently. While the monastic community depends for their requisites on laity, the laity in turn depends for their spiritual guidance and advice on the monastic community. The requirement of a monastic is fourfold: robes, foods, lodging, and medicine. The Papancha Sudani, commentary to Majjhima Nikaya, explains that a monk accepts the fourfold requisite from the lay community only as much as is required to carry on his practice. Also, he accepts the requisites considering the capacity of the donor. After receiving the requisites, he does not use them carelessly. He fully understands their purpose in the practice, and thus, with wise reflection, patisankhayoniso, he utilizes them. As for example, he uses the robes not for beautifying his body, but to cover the private parts and to protect himself from bad weather, flies, and various insects. He takes foods not for amusements or playing, but for sustaining his life so that he could continue his practice. He uses lodging also for protecting himself from flies and other insects. And finally, he takes medicine to cure any sickness that has arisen and thus be freed from the hurtful feelings arisen due to the sickness. So this provides a very clear explanation as to how a monastic member should make use of these four requisites. And in return, the monastic community provides guidelines for the lay community to lead a righteous life, ensuring happiness and peace. The monastic community basically teaches them 5 precepts: not killing, not stealing, not engaging in sexual misconduct, not lying, and not intoxicating, also called as 10 wholesome actions performed through body, speech, and mind. Thus, the coexistence of the fourfold Sangha reveals a social system where the laity contributes the monastics to lead a comfortable life with all the requisites and be engaged in their spiritual practice without any difficulty. And the monastics guide the laity to lead a successful lay life with happiness and peace. Yeah, so that is about the interdependency between monastic members, monastic community, and lay community. The last note on the importance of Sangha as Kalyanamitta. So Kalyanamitta is one of the very, very important expression in the Buddhist spiritual practice. Okay, so this has been given very, very, very much importance in the Pali literature. For example, if you look at this expression, you'd find here there is this is a discussion between Buddha and Ananda. Ekamantang nisinno ko ayasma anando bhagavantang etadapocha. So Ananda is telling the Buddha, upaddhamidam bante brahmachariyassa yadidang kalyana mittata kalyana sahayata kalyana sampavankatati. So Ananda is telling Buddha that, Venerable Sir, I understand that this kalyana mitta, this becoming a good friend, the quality of being a good friend, a good friendship plays half role in the spiritual practice. So if you have a kalyana mitta, so you are already progressed halfway in your spiritual journey. Okay, whereas if you do not have a kalyana mitta, it would be very difficult to progress in the path. Okay, so a good friend is very helpful, he said to the Buddha. But the Buddha said, Mahevang Ananda, Mahevang Ananda. Sakalameva hidang Ananda, Brahmacharyang yadidang kalyana mittata, kalyana sahayata, kalyana sampavankata, kalyana mitta setang Ananda bhikkhunu, patikang kang, kalyana sahayassa, kalyana sampavankassa, aryang attangikang magang, bhavesati, aryang attangikang magang, bahuli karisati. The Buddha is saying that, Ananda, don't say that it is just half of the spiritual journey. It is the complete spiritual journey. So this having good friend, this good friendship or kalyana mittata plays a very important role in the spiritual journey. It covers the full spiritual journey. Throughout your spiritual journey, you need kalyana mitta. And Buddha is regarded as the best kalyana mitta, right? And then his enlightened disciples are regarded as best kalyana mitta. Now there is another word opposite to kalyana mitta is papa mitta. Okay, so I think you can understand why kalyana mitta is very, very important as opposed to papa mitta. Kalyana mitta is someone who would guide you in your spiritual journey, right? Who would be correcting you, leading you, guiding you to the right direction. Papa mitta is the one that is evil friend who would, take you down to a wrong path, right? So Buddha is saying here that actually throughout this spiritual journey, in a complete spiritual journey, Kalyanamitta plays a very, very important role. Here specifically, he is saying that in the practice of Noble Eightfold Path, in the making much or in the progression of the Noble Eightfold Path, you need to have Kalyanamitta. Sorry? Yes, right. Yes, of course. Yes, so your master, your other friends in the monastic community, your teachers, whoever is providing you good guidance, good teaching, directing towards your, progress in the spiritual journey should be considered as Kalyanamitta. Okay. Okay, now a little bit about the contributions made by the Sangha for the preservation and flourishing of the teachings and the Sasana. I've just mentioned a few points here. Probably when we discuss about the collection of text or, preservation and transmission of text, probably I discuss more about this, but very briefly, the reason behind establishing this Sangha is, of course, for the long lasting of this asana, right? So that many people can be benefited in the time of the Buddha and also later on, even until now, right? So Sangha played a very, very important role, both monastic Sangha and lay Sangha, because they are interdependent, right? First of all, by carrying out the practice. Okay, so they have, as if you recall, as the Buddha vowed to establish these sanghas when he was requested by the Mara to attain parinibbana. He said that I need to establish these sanghas, right? And this sangha have to be well established in the teaching. They have to understand the teaching very well. They have to carry out the practice very well. They have to be able to teach the same teaching to others properly. That should be considered as well establishment of the Sangha. So the Sangha also, I think, kept their undertaking of the practice seriously. They have been practicing it. So this is one thing that they have done, and that is how they have really transmitted the teaching with their practice and experience. And you would find in the Nikaya text, Digha Nikaya, Majjhima Nikaya, Anguttara Nikaya, and Samyutta Nikaya especially, and also Khuddaka Nikaya, there are a number of suttas and text that represent sayings of these disciples. Not all the suttas were spoken by the Buddha himself alone. Okay, so there are suttas spoken by Sariputta, for example, Moggallana, Punnamantani Putta, Dhammadinna. Dhammadinna is a Bikuni. Okay. And you can particularly look at this text belonging to Khuddaka Nikaya, Theragata, Therigata, and Itivuttaka. Okay, even Udana also. In this text, you would find the expressions, beautiful expressions, or exalting utterances of the male monastic Sangha and female monastic Sangha. bhikkhus and bhikkhunis. When they have been carrying out their practice, when they have attained their sainthood, arahantship, or whatever, different stages of sainthood, they expressed their feelings in different words. So all this is recorded in this text. Theragata represent the verses spoken by Theras, monks. Therigata contains these statements spoken by bhikkhunis. In the Iti Uttaka, you have mixed statements, and in the Udana as well. In the Udana, you have statements even by the Buddha and other disciples. Okay. Among other things, Dhamma Katha and Dhamma Sakaccha. So this is one practice that they have been doing. It says it was a particular instruction by the Buddha that when monastic members gather together, they should do two things. Either they should engage in the discussion of Dhamma, or they should be silent, carrying out their own practice, rather than being engaged in the discussion of Tiriya Katha, Tirachana Katha. They are called Tirachana Katha. Means other types of talks. For example, they talk about kings, they talk about thieves, they talk about neighbors, so all the other kind of discussions are called Tirachana Katha. They are not helpful in the progression of the spiritual journey. So this is one thing they have been practicing. There are different suttas that represent the discussion that took place between the monks or between the Buddha and his students. You can particularly look at this Mahavedalla Sutta, Chulavedalla Sutta, Mahagosinga Sutta in the Majjhima Nikaya. In all these suttas, you have monks gathering together to have Dhamma discussion. Okay. And then, of course, commentarial and subcommentarial literature came into exist. Because these sanghas, they wanted to understand and interpret and teach this teaching of the Buddha in an elaborated manner. That is what is contained in this commentarial and subcommentarial literature, Attakathas and Tikas. Yes, so that is all for today's discussion. If you have any question, you can ask question now with regard to the course or today's topic. Any question? What week is this? Which week? This is 4th or 5th week? On the 7th or 8th week, I think we need to, have this midterm test. I need to have this midterm test with the BA students especially. So, this is 5th week or 4th week. We are having 5th, right? Okay, so on the 8th week, most possibly, I will write to you about it again. The BA students have to face this midterm test, right? And I would suggest the MA students to submit your essay by 8th week, the short one. Okay.
So no class on 8th week that day?
8th week, yeah, I guess there will be no class. So you can spend your time to proofreading or correcting your essay and submit it on the same day. Probably I would have to make a special kind of arrangement with the BA students to complete this midterm test. But first, I think I need to talk to somebody in office, yeah, to know about it clearly. Yeah. Any other question?
Hello, teacher.
Yes.
May I ask about midterm exam?
Yeah.
When we will midterm exam starting?
So if it is the 5th week, 7th, okay, let's see.
When we
So yeah, September 21st.
Oh, 21st. Okay.
Yeah, September 21st.
Okay. And then I waiting to no details paper.
Sorry.
And then I waiting is waiting paper detail papers program papers.
21st September, we will have this midterm test. Probably we'll be meeting like now that, in the way we have class, or probably I would provide you a set of questions which you have to, answer and then send to me. Okay, so I'll figure it out very soon. And yeah, so that is all. It should not be very difficult. And the questions would be based on the discussions that we had so far. So it should not be very, very long. Probably you just have to probably write, 1 or 2 pages. That's all. Not too long.
Okay.
It should not be very, very complex.
Okay.
For the ME student, of course, you have to write this essay, short essay. And I would expect you to submit it on 21st September.
Okay, teacher.
Short essay. For the BA students, you have to write just one essay, so you can take your time. You can submit it later. Okay. Because the ME students have to write 2 essays, right? One is short, just 1,500 words. The other is a bit longer. The final essay that you all have to submit, I mean, even the PS students also, that is, you can submit it to me just a few days before the semester ends, no problem.
Okay, teacher.
By the end of the semester, yeah.
Okay.
Excuse me, Reverend sir.
So you have the academic calendar.
Hello,
When is
Reverend
the
sir.
semester ending?
Hello.
Yes.
Sir, I want to know that do you need to put the citations also for the short essay?
Need what?
Citations, footnote.
Yes, it would be good if you can provide, citations, references, right? That would be good. It is specifically required from the ME students, I guess, right?
Yes. Thank you, Bante.
Yeah. So according to this academic calendar, final examination, study, last day of lecture. November 12. So that means in the first week of November, you can probably submit your final essay.
Okay, teacher.
Before the end of semester, that means before December 4, in November, first week of November, or probably second week of November, you can submit your essay. Even the BA students, you know.
Okay.
Okay, then
teacher.
if there is no other question, I think we can end our class here. See you next week.
Thank you, teacher.
Bye-bye.
Next.
Okay.